Well, hello everybody. I wanted to take just a moment and go through a few Bible helps that are free online. And there's a couple I wanted to show you. If you remember in our last newsletter, we talked about some Bible tips and ways to do word searches and that sort of thing. I told you about two. There's Blue Letter, Bible.org, and that's what we're going to look at today. There's another one you can also use called eSword, and I was going to show you both of them on this first video, but I thought it might be better to just stick with one at a time. They're both good. I can never figure out which one I like more. I like them both. But I just figured, here you go. If you've never done this, this is very much an introduction. So if you've been using Blue Letter Bible for a while, or eSword for a while, or you're familiar with how to use online Bible study helps, this may be a little bit too introductory for you. But if you're new to it, that's all I want to do, is just introduce you to this idea. So this one is blueletterbible.org here in our URL field. And once you get this website up, you can go and pick a version here. And you see even an option for LXX, and that's the Septuagint, and a lot of options here. So KJV, NKJV, I teach from the NKJV. And let's go ahead and put you can put a verse, a word, or a topic in here. I'm going to go ahead and just put a verse in here. Let's just go to something like this, Galatians chapter 2 and verse 20. Now, I'm obviously doing a shortcut there. You don't have to spell out all of Galatians, but, GAL, for example, if you want to do Matthew 7, just MT, Leviticus, like that. So you kind of learn some shortcuts as you're going through here. Well, let's just go to something kind of random here. So let's go to Romans 8. I don't know what I said earlier, I think Galatians, but we'll go to Romans 8, hit enter, and it brings up this screen here. Now, this screen here, you can actually control the font size. So if you need to be able to see, you can do that. You can control the types of font that you see if you want to mess around with that and kind of see whatever works for your eyes the best. So we'll make the font size a little bigger. Okay, say you like that, you can go ahead and click out of that. So let's just say you're reading along here and you want to learn more about the verse. So you click on Tools, and you see these pop up here automatically: Interlinear, Bibles, Cross-References, Commentaries, Dictionaries, Miscellaneous. So let me just kind of show you how to do a Greek study real quick. Remember, we do a Greek study in the New Testament and a Hebrew word study in the Old Testament. That's the original languages. So we're going to click on Tools, and this all comes up here across the top. That's the same listing we just saw. So interlinear is what comes up here. You see there is therefore now no condemnation. You kind of see these words down here. There's no Greek representative for that. Therefore, here's the Greek representative for therefore. Now, and actually you can see how I'm moving down with my cursor, and then do you see up here on the top, it's actually telling me what word it is. So this is the word that represents the word now. This is the word that represents the therefore. Okay, there's the word for no, and so forth. So look at and scroll down here. Let's say we're going to do a word study on the word condemnation. So say we want to look into this word. So we would click on the Greek here. I can actually see what it even sounds like by clicking on that speaker. Here's the Greek word that's translated as condemnation. Okay, so I can learn a whole bunch of things here. Here's how to say it. And I can see its outline of biblical usage. I just want to say this real quickly. This right here is from the publisher, so don't take this as from God. I've seen this be wrong before. But for the most part, enjoy doing your study with this. This will tell you the total count. It is used 3 times, and every single time it's used as condemnation. Here, let me grab a different word, and I'll show you that it'll do this a little differently. Let's take the word Jesus. I know that's used more than once. So you can see, now we can see it's used 972 times. It's translated as Jesus. It's also translated as Joshua. Remember, that's the same Hebrew word. And justice once. That, because that's a proper noun, that might even be a little confusing. Let me go to something else. Let's go to the word spirit, pneuma. I click on that, and it tells me that it is used 385 times. That's still too frequent for me to teach this. Let me get something that's a little bit used less than that. Let's find something else here. Okay, so say I want to do a study on the word death. So what I would do is I'd click on Tools and go down to the word and click on it. And it will tell me that death is used 117 times. Now, this exact same Greek word is translated as death 117 times, but also the word deadly 2 times. All right, just as an example, just so you can see that the translators used different words to represent our English words. It's just, there could be one Greek word that's translated 3 or 4 different ways. Namas, law, 197 times every time they translate it as law. So anyways, you can kind of have fun going through there and see, a word might be a little different than you think by doing it this way. And before I teach a section of scripture, I always go through, and I do this with every single word in the text that I'm teaching on to make sure that it's something that I'm understanding. All right, so sarx, translated as carnally. It's translated as flesh 147 times. The same word sarx is carnal 2 times. Carnally minded is if it's with another Greek word, and fleshly 1 time. And those are all laid out right here. So you can see it'll tell you every time that it's used. See, it's used here 151 times in 130 verses, and they're all laid out here. Now, just wanted to show you how to be able to see what words are translated from sarx and so forth. Here's the next level. Once you know where it's used, specifically in the book that you're studying, you want to know how the author of that book uses it. But here's something else too. Notice that every time you get to a word, there may or may not be a root word etymology of that word. So here, this word sarx, the Greek word sarx, which is translated mostly as flesh, has a root word. And you see how it says probably from the base. They're telling you that this is similar to a word and they think it's probably from this word. So we click on that and it will give you another shade of that word. Now this says to sweep, clean by sweeping. And that is translated sweep 3 times. So that's a verb. So you have what on earth would, and I'm kind of doing this on the fly, so I'm learning with you. What would flesh have to do, or carnal have to do, or carnally minded, or fleshly have to do with the word sweep? Well, first of all, notice this is a noun. So the noun form of flesh now changes to a verb form showing action of to sweep. Huh. Now think about that for a second. The action part of flesh is to sweep. Okay, we'll just kind of keep that in our head. We don't need to know all the answers right now. But this also is derived from a different word, to brush off, akin to another Greek word. So we're going to click on this. To draw or to drag or hail. To draw or to drag. Well, that's the motion of sweeping. You drag it across the floor. And that's also from another word. Wow, this one's going deep. I didn't even know this. So to drag or to brush across the floor, to take for oneself. So that means that you're sweeping it. That's the direction of sweeping. Now we're getting a more detailed understanding of sarx by going deeper and deeper to the root words. To take for oneself. So to take, the action is to take here, to choose. It's a verb. Well, think about that. If you are sweeping the floor, you are drawing or choosing to take for yourself, or the action of taking towards yourself the broom when you're dragging it across the floor. Okay, so now we're just kind of getting a deeper understanding of that word. Oh, we finally got to our primary word. It's a root word. It's a verb, and it means to take up, take away, take, lift up, bear. Interesting. So all of these, would you have ever guessed that? The root word of sarx, which means flesh, has to do with the idea of taking or lifting up or sweeping across the floor. How could we understand all these things? So this is how you do a study. Now you can see when you're doing a study in the Bible, if you have a teacher that wants to manipulate the text, you can see here that you do not do a word study by looking at all of these options, like you're at a buffet and you pick whichever one seems to help your point. I've often said this, that if I wanted to, I could teach through the Bible and I could make it really mean whatever I want. You say, Ken, how could you do that? Well, it's simple. I take a verse like this, and if I have a theological bent and I want this to say something, then all I have to do is just start going through here and get to the word I'm looking for. In this case, we were looking at the word flesh or carnally. And all I have to do is keep on clicking on root word, and you see how there's all these options here to sweep to clean. And then I just keep doing this and keep going to the root word until I find something I want it to be. Punishment. But punishment is in the context of drawing or dragging towards yourself like you would sweep. Here's in the context of punishment. Now, it seems to me, maybe you're wondering, how do all these things fit together? Well, it seems to me that sarx, when it's translated as flesh, carnal, it has to do with being swept. Well, it's the soft substance of the living body which covers the bones and permeated with blood. So it's the outside of us, of course. And just to kind of bring this little impromptu study full circle, where did we come from? Well, the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground. So you are dust. Now, that was a Greek study, and let's do a quick Hebrew study. And this brought us here. I haven't planned this study. It's just kind of what's happening on the fly here. But now we're here. You'll see that it changed. The G changed to an H. That stands for Hebrew. So here, this is the Strong's Concordance that came up. And just like that, we saw in the Greek, now we see Hebrew. Now remember Hebrew, not remember if you don't know, but Hebrew goes from right to left. So you see I'm on the top right of the verse, and actually, this is interesting. That one word right there is translated and formed. So and formed are from that one Hebrew word there. This is Lord, Yod, He, Vav, He, Yahweh. Sometimes they put an O there just to help you to understand it, but that's actually not there. It's actually, you probably can't even pronounce that. YHWH kind of is a exhale. We put Jehovah there. We would say Jehovah. But anyways, so just so you can see, you can drag this across the top, and it will tell you which word it's highlighting. Okay? Simple enough. There's the word dust. That's what Adam was made from. Oh, let's do a study on Adam real quick, just because I think this comes in handy when we're doing a lot of our other studies. So here's the verse on the left-hand side. And the Lord God formed man. You'll notice sometimes the order is changed here, because this is telling you exactly what the Hebrew word means. And the word order is not always the same. The translators change that for it to make sense in another language. You hear people say, talk about literal translation. There's no such thing as a literal translation. A literal translation would not make sense. For example, right here, what word does this represent in the Hebrew? Well, it doesn't. They added that for it to make sense. Now, the King James translators put those in italics. When they don't have any backing of another language, that's the italicized words in your King James Bible. They just wanted you to know, we added this. It's not in the text, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense in the English language. Okay? Interesting. Look at this. The ground. Look at the Hebrew word. This is called transliterated. That means it's the sound the Hebrew makes in English letters. Adama. Ground is Adama. Now, interesting, check this out. When he makes man, look what the word for man is. Your English word man comes from this Hebrew word right here, right to left. It is Aleph, Dalet, Mem, and this little symbol below the Aleph is a sound. So Adam. So yes, Adam is the Hebrew word. Adam is Hebrew, and it's translated as man. That should make more sense now when we're reading it, and it says right here that God named him Adam because he was the first man. He said, I'm going to name you man because you're a man. Now let's say we wanted to look at some commentaries on this. So that's I've just been kind of showing you the interlinear here. And this would work the exact same way by the way. So if you wanted to do the word formed, you'd click on this. It will show you the pronunciation, the part of speech here. This shows you that it is from this root word here. You could do the same thing we did in the Hebrew. It's translated these different ways in English. So one word translated all these different ways. It tells you how many times. This is the publisher telling you their understanding of the outline. Just a word of caution, make sure you're not taking that as Bible because it's different. Connected to the Brown Driver Briggs lexicon if you're using the Blue Letter Bible, and also the Chaldean lexicon here, so you can read the full entry. When I'm doing something that's a little bit difficult, I'll read all of that just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Let me go back. So that's just to show you it's the same as the Greek interlinear. But let's go ahead and go over to commentaries. This is really neat. Now you have all these commentaries to choose from. You notice these are study tools. These are audio and video. This might take you to a clip where there's somebody actually teaching on it. I'm not sure I've ever used that before, but if you would like to hear somebody teach on that, then you can hear probably an MP3. I've never tried. This is mostly what I use. The text commentaries here, it'll tell you the heading of the person's name, and then it will, if they wrote anything on the passage that you're studying, it will bring that up. I usually, for this, I just, try to go to some older ones. There's Matthew Henry. There's his commentary in Matthew 2. I like Jamieson Fawcett Brown because it's extremely easy to navigate. Here, let me kind of just show you. I like these two, Matthew Henry and Jamieson Fawcett Brown. By the way, don't get too caught up on whether you agree with them or not. A lot of this stuff, like, for example, I don't think it has John MacArthur in here. I'm not a John MacArthur fan with his soteriology, his study on salvation, but he does a really good job on history. If you're trying to figure out, somebody went somewhere on what date and they did what, he does a great job on that. So a lot of these, don't worry about whether you agree with him on everything. I mean, I disagree with Spurgeon on some of his doctrine, but I sure appreciate the way he words things. His view of who God is and his history is amazing. Oh, here's some John MacArthur. So I would read him for history, trying to understand the passage in light of culture. He does a good job on that. But let me show you just a kind of a comparison here. Matthew Henry, notice it's already bringing up chapter Genesis 2 because that's what we're on. We're already clicked on that, so it opens it to you, to that exact passage. So it says chapter 2. He gives you an outline. This is very typical for Matthew Henry. He'll give you an outline for the whole chapter there. And these are even hyperlinks. You can go to that part of the chapter in the Bible, so you can read it right on the fly there. He explains the outline, and this is why he gets a little bit difficult to read because he goes over it so thoroughly, you kind of have a hard time finding what he's talking about. See, here's verses 4 through 7, but, if I were to ask you, where does he start talking about verse 5? You would think it'd be over here real bold, but it's stuck in here. It's kind of hard to find. For me, it is. See, there's the beginning of verse 7 commentary. It's in the middle. So I find him to be a little bit difficult. Not impossible, but just a little harder. You got to look at it. There's the next section that he had. Now let me show you why Jamieson Fawcett Brown is a little easier. You'll see. And if you want something just really, really quick at an easy glance, I usually go to them just to see what they're saying. Because Genesis 2, here you go. Look at this. Look how easy this is. Verse 1, it breaks it down by keywords. Heavens, host, we're finished. Verse 2, and he rested, blessed. So if we were to talk about verse 7, like we were looking at, formed, breath of life, breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. If they have anything more to say on it, it'll be very, very orderly, very quick, easy to see. I would definitely recommend Spurgeon on anything in the Psalms. He's just, the Treasury of David is some of his most famous work. And he's got some great stuff on that. So yeah, basically you can put in any verse you want here, or keyword. So if you want to look up something with the word love, you can put in love here. If you say, man, what is that verse? I know it is in, such and such a book, and it has the word love in it. So type that word in there. It's not the best for that. I would almost probably search the internet. And that's usually what I do. If I kind of know how a verse goes, or maybe somebody says, do you know this verse? And they kind of say it, and I don't know what they're talking about, I'll put what they're saying up here and search for it in the URL. And, that'll just search it with I'm on Safari. You can search it with whatever your search engine is, and then come back here and look it up there. Say you find out the verse they're talking about is, Zechariah 14:2. So you can put in the short form of that and go and say, okay, I think I know what they're talking about. They're talking about this one here, whatever. That's how I would almost rather search that on the internet to find a verse. Because the reason is because this is very difficult. If you get it if you get the wording incorrectly, it almost won't even come up here. You almost have to get this absolutely, actually you do have to get it right as far as spelling and that kind of thing. There's no wiggle room on this. If you want the exact wording, then you actually have to start with a quotation mark like this. See, there's some stuff I guess I've searched in the past, and then it will bring up the verses that say that exact wording. If you don't use quotation marks, then it will bring up, I think it says love, it says God and us. Then it will bring up everything that has the combination of those three, but maybe not in that order. Whereas if it's saying exact wording, love of God, in that order, then the quotation marks are needed, and it will bring up all the places where that is said in that order. Okay. If you have any questions about blueletterbible.org, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. This is intended to be an introductory for it. Let me show you one other thing I think is really handy, because I use this every week when I'm getting ready for our church study, and that is the ability that you have to copy and paste from this. If you want to copy and paste, you don't have to go here and highlight it and put it on. So if you're trying to create a document to collect verses or whatever, to put it on one document, say a Word document or a Pages document, you wouldn't highlight it like that. What you would do is actually come over and click that, right, like that. So say I wanted verses 1, 2, and 3. I go like this, then I'd come up here and I would click copy. Then you would go over to your document and click paste. So if you're creating a slideshow or whatever, that will put these right in order and be much, much easier for you to be able to understand than if you go like this, sometimes the format gets all messed up and it's much harder. So, and then you just simply unclick those if you're done with those, and you could then go to a different section, highlight those, and copy and paste those. But that's basically the gist of it. You don't need to be intimidated if somebody says in the Greek it says, or in the Hebrew it says. It sure helps to know the alphabet. I'm spending much more time in Greek than I am Hebrew right now. And so I work on Greek probably, 30 minutes a day, or maybe an hour or so, just trying to read it, pronounce it. I'm just, in my opinion, at the beginning stages of learning Greek. I think it'll probably take, 5 or 10 years to feel like I've got a good grasp on it. But this is a good way to, if you're not going to devote your life to, linguistics, then this is a really easy way to be able to go to any passage you want, click on the particular word, and then you can go to the particular verses or the particular words here and find out how many times something has been used, what the root word is, and kind of go from there. You might be surprised. You should never assume that you know what a word means, because as you dig a little deeper, you'll find the semantic range of words. So your task, should you choose to accept it when you're doing Bible study, is to find out where the author, in this case Luke, remember Luke wrote Luke and Acts, so I could go to either of those two books and find, how did the author use this? What are the places did he use it? What was the context he used it? I'll give you an example. Let's do an example that I use all the time. In Revelation 1, we'll just close with this. See where it says Revelation 1, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants things which must shortly take place. And I always point out, when this was written, the contents of Revelation were going to take place shortly. Now, people argue that because if they're a futurist and they don't want the things to happen in this book shortly, that's a problem for them because that's so clearly stated. But the way around that is they say, no. What that means is, when it says shortly take place, what that means is that it may not start happening for thousands and 10,000 years, but when it does happen, it happens quickly. Okay, so somebody's wrong here. Either this means it's going to happen shortly after the book was written, or it means it happens really quickly once it starts happening. Now, which one is it? Well, I can figure that out right here. So what we do is we scroll down here, things which must shortly take place. This always makes me a little hungry because the Greek word is tacos. It's actually tacos, but looks like tacos. So we go here and we click on this and we start getting an understanding. It says shortly, which is how it was in Revelation, quickly, speedily. It's quickness or speed. So this could go either way so far, right? It's like, is it going to happen right away after the writing or a long period of time? And when it does start to happen, it happens immediately. Well, let's see how else it's used in the Bible. Remember, using our Bible as our definition, our understanding, our dictionary. Here's how it's used in one way. Luke 18:8. I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he really find faith on the earth? Okay, he will avenge them speedily. Does that mean he'll avenge them really, really, really quickly, but not for a long period of time? I guess you could kind of make an argument either way there. Maybe not totally clear. I think it means he's going to avenge them quickly after the time of the writing. But let's keep going. Now behold, an angel of the Lord stood by him, and a light shone in the prison. And he struck Peter on the side and raised him up, saying, Arise quickly. There's our word. That's the same word as used in Revelation. His chains fell off his hands. Now, question. Did the angel of the Lord come to Peter and say, Now, Peter, there's an earthquake. Your chains just fell off. You're in prison. I want you to stand up. But wait, don't stand up until I explain it all, Peter. I want you to stand up really, really, really quickly. Okay? But I just want you to understand, Peter, the angel of the Lord is talking. You can sit down for 3 years if you want. You can sit down for 10 years if you want, or 1,000 years. But buddy, listen to me. When you choose to stand up, I want you to be the fastest stander-upper, not a word, fastest stander-upper in the history of the world. Does that make sense there? No. What makes sense is what he's saying is do it now. That's the same word that we see in Revelation. Okay? And he saw him saying to me, Make haste and get out of Jerusalem quickly. Okay, does this mean that they can stay there in Jerusalem for 1,000 years, but when they decide to go, they better be jogging, not walking? No, it means from the time you get this commandment, start going. So you can see how I can go now to Revelation 1 and say that's not. So when people are very adamant and they say, no, this shortly take place, or here where it says, or else I will come to thee quickly, or in Revelation 22, these things which must shortly take place, all the same Greek word. When somebody says to you, oh, that means it's not going to take place for a couple thousand years or more, but when it happens, it's going to happen fast, then you can go to all these things here and say, but that's not how the word is used. So I use the clear passages. I think the Peter one is a very clear passage. Peter's not supposed to stand there for a couple hundred years, but when he stand up really quick. No, this means he's going to stand up right away from the time of the instruction, which is how I also interpret this in Revelation. So that might be a real practical example of how you can use this. You don't have to know any Greek to do what I just did. And you can learn as you go. I've done so many word studies over the years that now that I'm learning Greek, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember, angelos, angel, apostolos, apostle. Some of them even sound like it like those. So you'll pick those up as you go and do more word study. So nothing to be intimidated by. If you have any questions about how to use blueletterbible.org, please let me know. There's other things I think you can add. Like if you want, let's go to Matthew 3, just to show you this. You could also, I went there just to show you this. You could go red letter edition. And now the words of Christ are in red. So there's all these different things up here you can look at and try to make this as user-friendly as possible for you. And you'll find it to be a blessing if you use it. Now, next time we get together, I'll show you how to use eSword if you'd prefer. You'll probably, I'm guessing, I like using them both really, but you'll probably find that you'll gravitate to either one or the other, probably not both, but I'll show you eSword in a future video. All right, God bless you.